Hi, everybody, and welcome to a recorded Zoom interview with Trevor Waldien, South Dakota School of Mines. Trevor, what's the weather like today in Rapid City, South Dakota?
It is very pleasant especially for mid-November. We got our first snow last weekend, but
Hmm.
this weekend it's in the 60s and sunny, and
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Get out there on a mountain bike before the snow flies, right?
that's the plan.
Okay, very good. Well, viewers, you recognize Trevor. This is our third recorded Zoom interview. Plus, Trevor came to Ellensburg last month and gave a beautiful talk on the Alaska Orocline and the bending of the Alaska Orocline, and that is our topic today. There is a brand new paper hot off the presses. It is available at my website, nickzentner.com. Click on the word Alaska in the upper right, and you'll get to this brand new paper by Trevor Waldien, Oroclinal Bending of Southern Alaska during the final assembly of the North American Cordillera. Trevor, like we did before, can we start with the main message from the paper? Maybe a couple of minor messages as well, or subheadings, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah, the main message is actually built on a paper that Sean Regan and I and some others had published last year, which is that in along the Canadian Cordillera, say like around Juneau and those mountains through there, there's an intense shortening event from about 70 to about 55 million. So crustal contraction in that area.
Thank you.
Um, and Western Alaska didn't see any of that contraction, and instead, at that same exact time, it is rotating counterclockwise. And so our idea basically is that as they're shortening along the Canadian Cordillera, Western Alaska is kind of rotating around and folding around that thing that is shortening. And that thing that is shortening is the insular composite terrain or insular terrains,
Yeah.
Wrangelian composite terrain,
Right.
Wrangelian friends, whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it.
Okay.
We tend to call it the Wrangellia composite terrain. Um, but so yeah, basically shortening here, and then Western Alaska wraps around it. So the timing works out really good. The distribution of rock types works out really good, and that the data that indicate that rotation of Western Alaska are paleomagnetic data that were mostly collected in the 70s and 80s. And so I worked with all of those data, compiling them from the literature, and it seems like the timing of rotation works really nicely with the timing of shortening around Juno.
Is this big news? Is this way younger than previous workers thought for the bending of the Alaska Orocline?
The timing of bending is actually basically the same as what had been written.
Okay.
So the some of the rocks that have had the paleomagnetic work done on them, some of those rocks we have better ages on now, and
Hmm.
so maybe it shifts it a couple million years one direction or the other. But for the most part, the timing of bending is pretty much the same, which is generally late Cretaceous to early Eocene. So
Mm-hmm.
we say, I think 72 to 55, 57, something like that.
Yeah.
I will say also it's not totally clear when that rotation began. So the rocks that have the paleomagnetic data get back to about 72.
Huh.
There are some rocks a little older than that, but the paleomagnetic data quality is a little questionable on those.
Huh.
But then there's just like not a lot of rocks older or between about 150 and 75 million. There's just like not a lot of igneous rocks in Western Alaska to do paleomag on.
I see.
So you don't have the right rocks to do the thing to test for that rotation.
Yeah.
So we actually don't really know when it began, but it was certainly going by 70-ish and then progressively rotated until about 55. And then it doesn't seem like there's been much rotation since 55, maybe a little bit, but not.
It's always a pleasure talking to you. So I feel I can go anywhere here. So let's try a couple quick things, and then we'll go to a few slides that you might have, Trevor.
Sure.
Um, can we define what an orocline is, and what's the scale of this orocline that we're talking about today?
Yeah, so an orocline is a fold, basically, is what it is. In geology, we've got our folds, our anticlines, synclines, monoclines, things like that. Um, we also have this word orogen or orogeny,
Right.
right? So, in the lower 48, the severe orogeny, the Appalachian orogeny, right?
Yeah.
So these are mountain building events. So an orocline is just a folded mountain belt. And oddly enough, some of them actually are not built up mountain belts that again then get folded. That's sort of the original conception of this idea, is that
Mm-hmm.
it's a mountain range that is literally folded.
Right.
Sometimes you just end up with mountains that are curved as they're uplifting. So there's kind of two ways to do it.
Well, that's kind of where I'm heading next.
Yeah.
Like, for my mind, and I haven't thought about it more than 5 minutes, and you've been thinking about it for quite a while now. I want to get everything created in, let's say, a linear belt, and then the last gasp is just fold
Okay.
everything. So
Yeah.
you're saying it's starting the bending is happening. Let's say 70 million years ago. Is that your number? Or,
Yeah, for the onset. For the
okay.
onset. Yep.
But yet we still have strike slip faults. We still have stuff heading north while we're bending it. That seems so. And the strike slip faults
Our
are
bend.
are being bent as well.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the crux of the problem. How are you actively bending the entire state of Alaska while you're still sending stuff north during the bending?
Yeah, that's the basic premise.
Huh.
I'll tell you, it makes it really difficult to do the map restorations.
Yes. Right.
Very, very difficult, actually.
Hmm.
There are computer programs actually that'll do it for you, but the licensing for them is now proprietary, so that's a
Okay.
whole other can of worms.
All
But
right.
anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, the original story that was written about the Alaskan Orocline in the 80s was that you build up the Cordilleran origin,
Yeah.
then you buckle Alaska. Um, we're arguing that this process of building up the Cordilleran origin it actually took longer than how we thought about it in the 80s at least.
Okay. Okay.
And there were still components of assembling the Cordillera
Right.
into the earliest part of the Cenozoic.
Huh.
Or I mean, even now, if you think about Yakutat, right? Does that count as assembling the Cordillera? We're kind of accreting this Yakutat thing to the southern margin, so it's maybe still happening,
It's still
depending on
bending.
how you cut the pie, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so yeah. Anyway, this is what we call progressive or primary orocline development, which
Okay.
is the curvature is developing as the mountain range is forming.
Okay. One more thing, and then let's go to some slides.
Sure.
It's if you're like me and you're just starting to think about Alaskan plate tectonics, this is a first order observation. Like if I'd
Yes.
never
Yeah.
really thought about Alaska before, and look at this map and I see these mountains and I see these strike slip faults, like what the hell's going on with this bend? I mean, so this is obviously something people have been thinking about for a century or more. Anytime you make a geologic map of Alaska, you see these bends. So, I mean, it's an ongoing set of discussions, I'm sure, but you're just the latest. I'm just curious, how much have you gotten into the historical literature on this? Like, what were they saying pre-plate tectonics? I'm really putting you on the spot now, but like,
Yeah.
how has this?
Yeah. Well, sorry, go on.
That's it. Like,
Okay.
what have you thought about historically? What do you know about the history of thinking about this very basic question about when this folding must have happened?
Yeah. So you had mentioned earlier the scale. So the first thing that screams at you is just the scale, right?
Yes,
It's huge. It's all of Alaska.
it's all of
This
Alaska.
thing. So, from one side through the bend to the other side
Yes.
is 1,500 kilometers, something like that. And I like to remind everybody, Alaskan Brewing Company actually had this image on the bottom of their beer boxes for a while, but it had the contiguous 48 and then Alaska at the same scale on the bottom of their beer boxes, and mainland Alaska takes up the size of the Rocky Mountain West. All right, so everything west of Denver
Yes.
is basically mainland,
Wow.
normal part of Alaska, not southeast down where Juneau is, not the
Right.
Alaska Peninsula
Right.
out onto the Aleutians, but just that main chunk of Alaska is the size of the Rocky Mountain West.
Well, yeah. If there was an Orocline from Seattle down to Las Vegas, and there's this major thing, obvious that that would be so
Yeah,
amazing, and I would be teaching about it every day. But
right. Yep.
okay.
Yeah, so that's basically what it is. It's
Yeah.
just like way up
Right.
there, and there's a common misconception in the lower 48 that about the size of Alaska. But yeah, this thing is huge, right? So anyway, but to answer your question, as far as I can tell, the first paper written about it was in 1955
Hmm.
by, I believe, an Australian guy
Hmm.
named named Carey. At least the journal was in the Tasmanian Journal of Earth Sciences. So
Ah,
I don't know if he actually was an Australian, but
okay.
anyway. But it was just like a global overview of curved mountain belts and oroclines and
Mm,
things like that. And he included the Alaskan orocline in there. So that's sort of, I don't know if it's quite pre-plate tectonics, but it's definitely very early in plate tectonic thought. Um, then there was a PhD dissertation in the 1960s by a person named Art Grants,
mm,
who went on to work for the USGS, and I think the dissertation's 1966.
mm.
And he talks about the curved strike slip faults. And he, I think the name of the dissertation is Strike Slip Faults of Alaska or something really general like that. Like he just
Cool.
really zoomed out and
Yeah.
looked at the distribution of strike slip faulting in Alaska. And he noted the curvature of the faults at that time in the 60s. And then not a ton was done on it, as far as I know, until the 1980s. And there
Mm,
was a paleomagnetist at UC Santa Cruz named Rob Coe.
yeah.
And he and his students, for several years over the early to mid 80s, were working all over Western Alaska, just drilling the crap out of everything that was worth drilling
Mm-hmm.
and collected a ton of paleomagnetic data on those rocks in Western Alaska. Oh, and then actually there was also a paleomag lab at University of Alaska Fairbanks at that time in the 70s and 80s, and there were some folks from there that also collected paleomagnetic data on the Alaska Peninsula. Um, as I remember, though, I think they argue that in their papers that the Orocline didn't exist. So,
Okay.
yeah. Anyway, but
Yeah.
that's maybe another
Yeah.
topic for another day.
That's
But
right.
but anyway, yeah. So not much had been written about this, and uh, like most of what was written about is in the 80s, and then unfortunately, those papers were kind of in not very mainstream journals, and they're in like some weird AAPG special volume on
Right.
Circum Pacific thing that like a lot of universities don't even have access to. Like you hit a paywall if you find like you can find it on Google Scholar. You click on it and you hit a paywall.
Of course.
So my grad student a couple of years ago just emailed Rob Coe. I didn't even know he was still alive, and he sent us the papers
Nice.
from there's two of them, one in 85 and the other in 89.
Good.
And so we finally got to read them.
Yeah.
And anyway, so but not much has been written about it since then. And then Sean and I have been thinking about it the last couple of years and wrote our paper about it. And we have some, basically the data are the same. We used all of the available paleomagnetic data, and then we have some geological arguments that we used in the paper. Um, the main difference is our tectonic model is
Cool.
different.
Well, good. Let's please go to your slides. This is wonderful. Thank you for that extra few minutes of detour there. But
Sure.
I'm so confident in your depth of knowledge that I feel like I can just kind of throw whatever at you and we just make it work. So this is good. So I'll try to sit
Yeah.
back here a little bit and let you roll a little bit, Trevor. I won't interrupt unless something really fires me up, and we'll just see where this goes.
Yeah, totally. So I think what I'm going to do right now
Mm-hmm.
is go to this slide here
Good.
and just to start and set the tone. So basically, I say there's some geological arguments that we use.
Mm-hmm.
And here's that curvature. I call it the Alaskan Orocline hinge, is this zone of where the strike slip faults really bend right through the middle of Alaska.
Yes.
And the basic geological arguments are that from here down to the southeast, you're generally looking at high-grade metamorphic rocks next
Mm-hmm.
to the Denali Fault.
Mm-hmm.
And that metamorphism is protracted, but there's metamorphism lasting, and magmatism actually, lasting up until about 57 million years ago.
Okay.
Okay. So here we're looking at exhumed metamorphic rocks that have things like kyanite and garnet in
Mm.
them. We're looking at plutonic rocks that equilibrated at depths of, 15, 20, 25 kilometers depth. That's along this end over here. Now you get out here, you don't see plutonic rocks. You don't see, or not many plutonic rocks
Mm-hmm.
anyway. You don't see metamorphic rocks, at
Mm-hmm.
least of that age. What you see are sedimentary rocks and volcanic rocks.
Hmm.
So basically, over here, there's a deeply exhumed um, orogenic belt, and out here, there's not. This
Okay.
is shallowly exhumed upper crustal stuff. And so, um, That's one of these main geological arguments. And so if I just kind of quickly run through the tectonic reconstruction here, basically we've got a bunch of shortening along this margin here along the length of the Canadian Cordillera, and then this is Western Alaska. Here we're at about 70 million years ago restoration.
Hmm.
So this is Western Alaska, and so as you shorten things here, Western Alaska is going to curve and bend around and kind of wrap around the end of this stuff. And so we'll just kind of run that forward in time. So this is present day, about 50 million years ago. You see most of that bending's already done by now, and then back to 70 million. So shortening here, wrapping this stuff around. We'll wrap it around. Incidentally, this also initiates the Aleutians
Hmm.
around this time.
Okay.
You move it forward with a little bit more strike slip faulting, and this is the present day distribution of things. So what I can do now is just show you some pictures of the rocks out here. And then I've also got some pictures in that yellow star and then down, not that yellow star, but down around this area too. I've got some pictures of just what the rocks look like. Because I mean, if you've seen many rocks, these are very, very different
Well,
rocks.
yes, to remind the viewers, you live in South Dakota, but you're spending every field season up in Alaska. So you have how many seasons by now? A dozen or more? Or
My first one was 2014.
okay,
So,
yeah, yeah.
and I didn't get to go in 2020.
Okay.
So I think I'm right at 10.
Nice. Well,
But,
yes. So
yeah.
so this is field work. You're not sitting in an office in South Dakota working all this stuff out. You're out there banging on these rocks every summer. So let's enjoy some of
Yep.
these photographs.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I guess the first one is maybe bury the lead here, but this is actually not a photograph. This is a DEM that I just took a really quick screenshot of. But what I want to show you are these things that look like welts.
Mm-hmm.
These are kind of interesting. And then I took another screenshot of the geologic map of Alaska and overlaid it here.
Mm.
And so we've got TKG; those are granitic rocks,
Yeah.
and then the purple here are volcanic rocks. So TKV.
Mm-hmm.
This is that same purple up there. They're dated at 70 million. Over here, this is a different quad, so the map units are a little different, but basically the pink stuff is a granitic rock, and then the orange stuff are the volcanics. And so in both of these places, you've got 70 million-year-old volcanic rocks that are preserved and in this kind of circular concentric map pattern. And there's a little bit of plutonic rock just on the inside of these mountains right here. So basically the interpretation is that the orange stuff is the outside of the volcano, and then the pink stuff is the magma chamber. And it's been exhumed just enough to where you get both still present.
Hmm.
So I just think this is so cool because you can look at the landscape and you're like, well, that kind of just looks like an old volcano.
Right.
And then you look at the geology and you say, well, it is. And you see stuff like this all over Western Alaska. This is just a couple examples that are next to each other. So to show you a couple
Well, that is
of
pretty
them.
wild. You got volcanoes that old that still have a topographic expression.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
It's pretty wild. Still a topographic expression of these 70 million year old volcanoes.
Crazy.
So anyway, here's what some of these rocks look like, the
Oh,
volcanic rocks. These are
hello.
um, this is actually a dike, not a lava flow, but look at these columnar joints, like beautiful basalt columns.
Hmm.
Not quite Columbia River quality, but they're 3 times as old, so
Yes.
that's okay. But anyway, still pretty good stuff. These ones are a little more eroded, but you can see that 120-degree intersection there in the columns.
Mm-hmm.
These off the flank of these volcanoes, you see fluvial deposits. These are clasts of river gravels, right? And most of these clasts are the volcanic debris. So these are big rivers coming off of the volcanoes that have basalt and rhyolite and andesite clasts in the rivers. And actually in one place, this place actually, I think we found that a lava flow was channelized and entrained a bunch of these clasts into the lava. And we dated that lava at 76 million.
Wow. Wow.
So, so I mean, these are things that you see like in Ellensburg in your
Right.
backyard coming off
Yes.
Mount Rainier,
Totally. Yes.
right? But here they're 70 million years old.
Huh.
And then here's some bedding in those fluvial deposits. You can see this is a little pebble conglomerate bar here. Um, so here's some landscape photos. This is a dike that cross cuts those conglomerates. This is out on basically on the beach of the Bering Sea, out by a village of named Togiak, Alaska, and this is those conglomerates are this cliff that you can see across the landscape here. So underneath are Jurassic sandstones, but there's this unconformity where you've got these 75-ish million-year-old conglomerates just sitting right on top. Boop. And look, they're flat lying.
Yeah.
They haven't seen much action.
And
So
I don't want you to stop your share, but I'm starting to lose it slightly. Are these field locations just wonderful photos, or are they specific sites that are helping with this new paper?
these mostly photos to make the argument that Western Alaska didn't see this major metamorphic
Yes. Okay.
event, right?
Yes.
This is basically a 70 million year old landscape that is preserved in
I
Western
see.
Alaska.
I see. And the other place that was exhumed and full of metamorphic rocks is that the Coast Plutonic Complex?
That's yeah, part of it. That's what some folks will call it, yeah.
And would you assume that Coast Plutonic Complex scene is beneath these photos as well?
That's an interesting question. There's certainly plutons of that age under here, but the shortening structures, the intense metamorphism, the inverted metamorphism, there's no evidence that much or any of that stuff happened out
Okay.
here.
All right. Good. Thank you. Please proceed.
Yeah, but actually related to your question is
Yes.
just on the other side of this image here is the beach, and out beyond that beach is an island, and that island has some of these 70 million year old volcanics on it. And Rob Coe had a student um, who drilled those for his dissertation, and
Wow.
that's actually a great paleomagnetic site. Some of the highest quality paleomagnetic data from this area are just basically on the other side of this hill right here out on Hagemeister Island. So,
Thank you.
so anyway, not these exact rocks, but this general map unit, if you
Yes.
want to treat it that way,
Yes.
has been drilled for paleomag quite extensively and gives really great data. It's, flat lying, pretty much unbothered basalt. Great
Right.
for paleomag,
Right.
right? So anyway, switching gears now. That's all Western Alaska.
Okay.
This is what the rocks look like when you get into the squishy metamorphic plutonic stuff. So this is from a region called the McLaren Schist, which is in the Alaska range. It's that yellow star I pointed out earlier,
Yes.
and you can see these. So these are igneous melts, felsic melts that have been folded and are boudinaged and stretched all out. And then in between here, this darker stuff is metasedimentary rock that has, in this locality, has garnet sillimanite assemblages. So we're looking at pretty deep.
How deep do you think?
Uh, I'm trying to remember some of the PT work that Sean has. I think we're looking at the highest pressure stuff, which is actually below this, gives pressures up to about 1 gigapascal. So I don't know, let's just say 20 kilometers to
Sure.
be on the more
Yeah.
conservative side.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And this stuff was that deep at 70-ish?
That's the other thing so these melts here, we've dated these plutonic rocks and they're 70 million. So these lavas, 70 million in Western Alaska,
Yeah.
this stuff was at 20 kilometers
Yes.
depth
Love
at
it.
the same exact time.
Love it. Love it. Okay.
All right.
Yes.
And so now I've just got some other fun photos of this stuff. So here we've also got those intrusive igneous rocks. Here they've been boudinaged and stretched, pulled apart. These rocks are 70 million. Here's a picture from Sean. This is down around Juneau. And you can see beautiful metamorphic fabrics in these rocks in this zone of high grade metamorphism. Multiple phases. I don't know. Some of these might be metasediments. Some of these look like kind of mafic intrusive igneous rocks. I don't know. I wasn't in the field with him in this spot, so I don't know the exact story.
Okay.
But and here too, just high grade metamorphic rocks out around Juneau. So in that area at 70 million, you've got intense metamorphism and magmatism, and then this stuff was brought to the surface, right? And out in Western Alaska, you don't see anything that looks like any of this stuff.
Right.
So,
what's a number we can use for bringing it to the surface? Did it come quickly to the surface?
it probably did come quickly. Certainly, so at 70 things were pretty deep, and
Right.
then by about 55 they were, I'd say, maybe around 10 kilometers depth.
Okay.
And then as things were reorganizing, initiation of the Queen Charlotte Fault, initiation of the Denali Fault, there's some extension of the Coast Mountains at that time. A lot of these rocks pretty much at the surface by 40-ish.
Okay.
No,
Thank you.
yeah.
All
So
right.
that's all I got for pictures.
Okay.
And so I can get out of here and stop sharing my screen.
Yeah.
And again, I just, it's like you just look at the rocks, and that was the thing is Sean and I have been working in the McLaren Glacier Metamorphic Belt. We've been working in Southeast Alaska on these really high grade metamorphic rocks, and we've also been working on Alaska on these. Like for a metamorphic petrologist and a hard rock structure guy, it's like Western Alaska is not that great because
Mm-hmm.
there's the wrong rocks there
Right.
for us, and we're out there just mapping all these basalts and sandstones, and we're just like this is the same exact time that all this crazy stuff is going on in the Coast Mountains.
Okay.
What's up with that? And that's what
Yes.
got us thinking about the Orocline.
So that was not some sort of grant with that objective before you even started working in these areas and collaborating with Sean, or it kind of was? Like, I like the fact that you asked that question right there. Like, let's zoom out a little bit. Like that, these two things are going on at the same time. What's the connection, and does it have something to do with this Orocline bending altogether? Did it kind of organically develop that way, or not quite so?
It did. I will say that the grant that funded us to work in Western Alaska addressing the Orocline was sort of an objective of that grant. What we're trying to really figure out there is, we've talked, you and I, about the displacement magnitudes on these strike slip faults.
Right.
And what we're trying to do is just figure out, does that displacement get through the Orocline out to Western Alaska?
Oh, yes. Right.
And if it doesn't, is the Orocline a reason for that? And
Huh.
I'll just tell you right now, it doesn't, but I'm not sure how much it's related to the Orocline. But anyway, maybe we could talk about that another time.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, we were just kind of like it was a rainy day. We were sitting on Lake Nurka in Wood-Tick State Park. It was pouring rain. Clouds are on the deck. We couldn't see anything. We're sitting there drinking tea and coffee and cocoa and just like, what's the deal with the Orocline? Like we got nothing else to talk about. We kind of got sick of reading our books, and we had students with us too. So we want to be productive with our
Right.
time.
Right.
And anyway, so we just started talking about the Orocline. It's like, well, what's crazy is like from 70 to 55 out in the Coast Mountains. It's like that's like there's a lot of action happening
Right.
at that time. And out in Western Alaska, there's not, or it's different action, I guess. There's
Right.
volcanoes erupting.
Right.
And then, so anyway, we're just trying to draw the parallels is like, what could possibly explain the fundamental differences in the geological character between these two regions? And for us, like, the elephant in the tent, if you will,
Yeah.
is with Orocline. It's like this is this thing that it's on maps. You see people on, a lot of these paleomag papers that restore Rangelia, they have it curved when they're restoring it at
Mm-hmm.
100 million or wherever, and it's like it actually wasn't curved
Oh.
yet,
Oh.
right?
Oh.
So it's like it's a thing that people will honor that there is curvature to the Rangelia composite terrain. There's curvature to Alaska, but I think it's not well understood, certainly. And even still, like, I don't know, we put out an idea, but we might be wrong,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But it's just kind of one of these things that's weird and it's difficult to deal with. And so we think we had a slick idea and we put it in GSA Today because it shows up in the mailbox of every single person that's a member
Yes.
of GSA and whether they like it or not, but maybe it'll get people thinking about the Orocline again, which I think would be good.
Well, it is a big deal, and I love so much about this, including the fact that you could easily just do a scientific paper and maybe make a new quad or something from the area by Juneau, or you could do the same thing out in Western Alaska and call it good. And it's like, okay, we've done our job, we've done our little postage stamp of new information, and what's next? But it does take some guts, from my point of view. It takes some guts to go. Let's make some connections and actually put the frickin' thing in print. Let's not just talk about it in the rain. Let's actually try to work this out. And that's
Yeah.
what I feel is it takes bravery to do that. And I'm gravitating towards people who are willing to kind of go that far. And have you received any reaction to this paper? It came out a few weeks ago. Is anybody saying anything pro or con about what you've done so far with this paper?
Um, not really. There, I did get a little bit of harassment about something I put in the figure caption. One person didn't like that, but
Classic.
or sorry, in the cover photo caption.
Okay.
Um, but other than that, I gotten emails and texts from people just saying, "Awesome, you got
Yeah.
a paper in
Right.
GSA today," which
Yeah.
like I don't know, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
I'm proud of it. I'm happy about it.
Well,
But I haven't gotten any hate mail about the Orocline. Like, this is ridiculous. This doesn't make any sense. I think it's one of these things that people know about, but nobody really knows enough about it to be critical of the new idea on it,
yes.
maybe.
Yes.
Maybe that'll change. I'm
Good.
not sure.
Good.
Um,
Well, let's finish this conversation with one more question. What could be done in the next 20 years to kick this a little bit further down the road? What are a couple unsolved mysteries related to this orocline bending?
yeah, so I think to me, something that would really help is just additional paleomagnetic
Mm,
data. It's so remote out there. It's hard to get to a lot of these places. So that's a big ask. But a lot of the paleomag that was done out there was done on fine grain sediments, which you can do,
okay.
but there can be issues with paleomagnetic data from
Okay.
fine grain sediments. And so targeting, I mean, we have beautiful volcanic rocks in Western Alaska, and going out and finding more paleomagnetic sites in those volcanics, I think would be really powerful, because they do have a pretty wide age range. There's volcanics as young as about 50, and then there's volcanics as old as, well, we've dated things like dikes at 76. So there's definitely at least that old.
And so
So I
then
think additional paleomagnetic data would be great.
that
Um,
would help confirm your numbers or
I
tweak your
think
numbers?
I think it would help us figure out the magnitudes of vertical axis rotation and how those have changed through time. So one interesting thing is that we basically say that what the data say is that there was a progressive rotation of Western Alaska over about 15 million years.
Mm,
But there's quite a bit of scatter in the data set. And so something that may help is getting more data, more paleomagnetic sites to determine whether that scatter is real
mm.
and what the mechanisms for that scatter might be. Because if you look at that plot, either in the talk slides or in the paper, it's kind of a shotgun blast. Like, there's a bit of a trend to it, but it's kind of
Yeah.
a shotgun blast.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, it's like if you have more data, you can start to whittle down your uncertainties on whether you interpret that as a trend or is it truly a shotgun blast.
Nice.
So that I think is probably the main thing.
Good. Good.
But I will just say in general, we are the first people in like 30 years to
Right.
be out in Western Alaska making new maps and doing that kind of thing.
Nice.
And it's just terra incognita. Like it seems like the end of the earth, and we just don't know a lot about
Yeah.
Western Alaska.
Yeah.
And I think that every little bit helps. And Sean and I are only two people, and we only have a couple students at a time, and so that's just how it's going to be. But so yeah.
Keep on keeping on. It's exciting to be checking in with you and Sean and others who have many years in the future to continue to work on some of these problems. Trevor, thank you for your time today. Please hold the line. We can chat a few more minutes, but I'll stop the recording. Dr. Trevor Waldien, South Dakota School of Mines, thank you for your time today.
Yeah.